Welcome back. Today on our Text Talk segment, we are focusing on an important update that affects personal travelers returning to Eswatini. Government has approved a change to the personal allowance for non-commercial goods imported as accompanied baggage. This update now comes at a crucial time as we approach the festive season. The change aims to make travel smoother, faster and fully compliant. Joining me in studio to unpack these changes are Director of Customs Technical, Precious Chawuya, and Marketing and Communications Manager, Nduduzo Dlamini. Welcome to the program to you both, actually.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's get to it. I'll start with you, Precious. So what is personal traveler allowance and what has changed really since government's announcement?
So, good afternoon to the viewers. Thank you, Notile, for the question. The personal traveler allowance is actually a concession that is granted to an individual when that person returns from Eswatini having purchased personal goods, so goods that are not going to be put to any commercial use. So what this allowance has or does, it has the effect of reducing the taxable amount on which we will collect the import VAT. So when we apply the allowance, it basically means that you will pay import VAT at a price that is lower than what you paid when purchasing the goods. So as you have indicated that with the introduction of this change by government, we are now seeing a very positive impact on our clients who are importing goods for personal use, in that the allowance which we are currently applying is only 1,000 emalangeni. But now this has been increased from that 1,000 to 10,000 per traveler. We just want to emphasize that this is for goods that will be used for personal use. And as the Minister indicated, this change takes effect on Friday, 28th November going forward. So non-commercial items which have been bought by a personal traveler, and that traveler ought to be bringing these goods into the country by themselves, this is when we are going to let them enjoy the allowance of 10,000 on the goods they have purchased.
All right. I like that you're putting emphasis on how this is simply for personal goods. I think a lot of us could actually use that clarity. Nduduzo, allow me to come to you. How does this new allowance work, in practice for travelers returning from South Africa into the kingdom?
Thanks, Notsile, and good afternoon to you and the viewers. The process is quite simple. The first thing is just to highlight around that, I think, is to for our personal travelers to know that we've increased it to 10,000. And then the second thing, as Precious has highlighted, is to mention that this is just only for personal use, not for resale. And then secondly, what we also expect from them is that when they come back, they're still required to declare. So which means they still need to get those VAT registered suppliers as they are doing those purchases when they come back in country.
Right.
Yeah.
Precious, my next one is for you. What are the conditions that a traveler must meet to qualify for this allowance? Are there any specifics?
So, Notile, I think the critical one, which we have indicated already, is the fact that the goods are for personal use. So that is the first condition we are looking at. And then when we say it's accompanied baggage, what we basically mean there is that the person who is bringing in the goods is the one who owns them. So if I send a courier to collect goods on my behalf, then they can't apply the personal allowance because it's no longer accompanied, it's agency facilitated. So those are the key conditions. So Nduduzo mentioned the fact that we expect a declaration. And yes, indeed, when you submit a customs declaration, it always has to be supported by information or documentation which validates the information that you are declaring. So one other condition is the submission of the relevant documents. So we just want to make an example here so that we also further outline how this personal allowance really applies the conditions. So when you look at the instrument that has been issued in terms of effecting this change, it mentions that for individuals who will buy goods from vendors who are registered for VAT in South Africa, those individuals only have the personal allowance of 250 emalangeni. So they cannot apply the allowance of 10,000. So we need them to then follow the conditions of collecting the appropriate tax invoice and bringing in any other supporting document that is required to validate the declaration. However, in the event then that maybe they missed something in checking the qualification criteria of this particular invoice, we will then say, instead of making this, of insisting that you are to use the VAT refund system, we can then allow you to use the personal allowance of 10,000. But we just want to amplify the fact that you need to bring your documents having checked them. So this is one other condition to say documentation which supports the declaration always has to be submitted to customs.
If you could just share examples, perhaps, what are some of these relevant documentations that you speak of?
So let's talk about a person buying from a VAT registered vendor. They should come with a tax invoice. So we know that some business enterprises will issue with what they call a commercial invoice or a till slip. So this one is not a tax invoice. So if the person is saying, I am registered for VAT and they charge you VAT in South Africa, they need to give you a tax invoice. And then you have bought maybe an electrical appliance that costs above 10,000. So your invoice also, in addition to that tax invoice, you bring us proof of payment for that amount that corresponds to what the invoice shows. So those are some of the supporting documents we are looking for.
So what should travelers keep in mind with regards to VAT invoices? You've touched on documents and the Sekulula VAT Easy.
Thank you, Notile, for touching on that. I think we've already said, bring your tax invoices, check that they qualify. We have information on our website which shows what we are looking for. What are the features of a valid tax invoice? So I'll make an example. If you buy goods that are above 5,000, the tax invoice has to indicate the name, my name as the person who is buying. So not only just the name of the supplier, but also the name and full address of the person who is buying. So that's critical. And then if it's above 10,000, you accompany it with the proof of payment. So Segulula works like that. And then what we are saying is that the allowance now brings a benefit in that if the claim is submitted, which basically means we are not going to get the VAT that was paid in South Africa on this one, we are not going to call up on the individual that imported to say, hey, your invoice was rejected, so you now have a liability. We'll simply apply the personal allowance and that declaration is finalized like that.
Very much. Duduzo, my next one's for you. What is the broader impact of this adjustment really, and how does it benefit the country?
Okay, thanks. There are several benefits to this allowance. So firstly, it gives full, honest and declarations to be correct. It also improves our customs import data. And then secondly, it also assists us as a country in terms of our SACCO receipts, which we share with South Africa, which will also contribute to our revenue. And then lastly, it also simplifies the process for travelers as they go out to the country and simplifying the process of declaring.
All right.
Yeah.
Precious, allow me to hand you a bonus one. So when giving the update, the Minister of Finance, actually, I think, even with the ERS, there's always emphasis on voluntary disclosure or, declaration of goods. How does accurate declaration of personal goods contribute to national revenue collection?
It has a huge impact. I think the Minister was also explaining it in his update, that whatever it is that is declared at the border, the first thing that will happen is that we are collecting correct statistics on what type of goods are being traded. So for policy-making purposes, this information is critical because it indicates what Eswatini are consuming. But then there is that VAT element, which says we are then collecting 15%. And if you had bought from a VAT registered vendor, through Segulula, you give us the invoice, and then we go and claim from South Africa, and that money comes into Eswatini. And then over and above that, as we make these declarations, we are contributing to the overall pool of revenue for SACU, which periodically is then allocated or distributed among the member states. So that distribution has a formula. Part of the formula will speak to how much trade occurred between the member states. Okay. So every time we declare, we are putting in information that is going to be used to calculate what revenue is due to Eswatini. So we find that it is really essential for everyone to fully declare.
Thank you very much, Precious Ndutuzo. I'd like for you to wrap it up for us, your key message as the ERS with regards to the importance of the declaration process, really.
Thanks, Notsile. It's just a reminder as we're going to Black Friday, the festive season. We're encouraging all Maswati to declare their goods. Should you also require any information, we are available on our pages on Facebook and LinkedIn. They can get us at Eswatini Revenue Services, or they can also WhatsApp us at 7606 3735, or they can also write us on email at info@ers.org.za.
Ndutuzo, Precious, thank you both for your time. That was Precious Chawea, Director of Customs Technical at the ERS, and Ndutuzo Dlamini, who is the Marketing and Communications Manager at ERS. And we're discussing the recent changes with regards to travel allowance update, update from 1,000 Malangeni to 10,000 Malangeni. It is the festive season. You want to shop, but also be sure to declare whatever goods you have coming into the country. Actually, our market analysis coming up after this.